Now to Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, where several explosions have been heard in the city center. It follows an air alert prompted by a series of missiles and drones launched by Russia, the largest attack of its kind in recent weeks. Kyiv's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, says that 8 people have been injured and that rocket fragments destroyed several buildings, including a kindergarten. Residents are sheltering in the subway as air defense units engage in repelling the assault. Well, for the very latest from Kyiv, we can join our correspondent there, Max Tsanda. Now, Max, first, tell us more about these overnight attacks on Ukraine's capital.
Right, Terry. So the city right now is recovering from a large-scale attack, one of the kind that it hasn't experienced for many weeks now. Last night, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, air raid sirens could be heard here across the capital, an air raid alert that would last for about 3 hours. And in that time, residents here in the city could hear air defense going to work, air defense rockets being launched into the air, flashes in the sky, and explosions being sounded all across the city. From what the Ukrainian Air Force is saying, 31 missiles were launched at the Ukrainian capital, all of which were intercepted, according to them. These missiles are different types of missiles, cruise missiles, but also ballistic missiles, including the Dagger missile, the Kinjal missile, which is very difficult to intercept. But according to the Ukrainians, they were all taken out of the air. Now, there were no direct hits in the city, but falling debris came down, hit residential buildings, kindergarten was impacted, businesses were impacted, as well as power infrastructure. And the numbers you just mentioned regarding people injured have been corrected. As of now, it seems that 13 people were injured, and at least 2 of them being children. And this attack, as I said already, at this scale hasn't happened in quite a number of weeks now. The Ukrainian authorities say that this was the first time in more than a month that the Russian strategic bomber fleet was deployed, and 11 aircraft are said to have been taken part in this attack on the Ukrainian capital.
So it sounds like a multi-pronged attack on Kyiv. Is this being seen there, Max, as retaliation for yesterday's attacks on Russia's Belgorod region?
Well, that is very difficult to say because usually neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians would comment on the reason behind their military actions. The Russians wouldn't comment on these kind of attacks usually. But what we know is that there has been fighting happening in the north of Ukraine, in the border regions with Russia, in the southern provinces in Russia, the Belgorod region, for example, and the Kursk region, as well as in the Sumy region in Ukraine. These regions have experienced bombardment and shelling. And in addition to that, as you mentioned, Russia has experienced boots on the ground. Already on March 12th, pro-Kyiv Russian militias carried out an incursion into Russian territory and have been fighting there. The Russians were quickly to comment on this and to downplay the events, to say that the attack had been thwarted. But more than a week later, from what we know, this fighting was still going on. And it's not exactly clear what the status is right now, but from what we're hearing, in Belgorod region in Russia, for example, children are being evacuated, and the long-term effects or the immediate effects of this fighting are not clear. It's certainly not going to change the course of the war, but it might disrupt things on the ground and certainly anger and, to an extent, embarrass the Russian leadership.
Max, thank you very much for bringing us up to date there. That was DW's Max Tsanda in Kyiv.